All right. Good morning, everyone. Matt Braden here from the GPAR team. So
Okay,
glad
so
to
here.
see everyone back for our coffee talk. I'm just going to ask a couple of things. If everyone could just please mute themselves, that would be dynamite. If you
So
have a
Mark,
question or
now, right?
Yeah.
It's very
if you could-
low.
mute. There we go. All right. Remember, just keep yourself on mute. If you have any questions, please drop it into the chat. We'll see if we can work it in at some point in time. And we're really glad to have this back into the fold, doing another coffee talk. So with that, I would like to introduce our president, President Roderick Walker. Good morning, Roderick. How you doing?
Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Paul, and good morning, associate members. Thanks for joining us this morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm glad you could be with us. As Matt said, I'm Roderick Walker, 2023 president for the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, and I'm pleased to have and introduce our featured guest this morning, Paul Levy from the Center City District. Paul is the founding chief executive of the Center City District, a $30.5 million downtown management district, providing security, cleaning, placemaking, and planning services for the city, as well as streetscaping, park improvement for the Central City District. And Paul, thanks for being with us, and it's a pleasure to have you with us, Paul.
Well, good morning, and thanks very much for the invite. I'm going to share my screen, just do a quick set of PowerPoint slides and really open it up to questions. So let me know if everybody can see this the minute it comes up, and then I'll get started. What I wanted to do is kind of share the results of a sort of monthly report we put out on recovery. Is everybody able to see my screen at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So we put out this report. It came out in mid-July, called Building Back a More Diverse Downtown. And at the core of the source of this is we're using Placer AI, which is cell phone data that's anonymous, and we tabulate it for what we call core Center City, which is Vine to Pine, River to River. I'll talk more broadly about the rest of the downtown. But what it showed is, as of June, we were back to 89% of the pedestrian volumes that we had in February 2020. And you can see in that chart, residents make up a significant part, about 60 to 70,000 non-resident workers. But the biggest share of traffic downtown are visitors, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But the good news is we were back up to 89% of where we were pre-pandemic. The rate of recovery for workers of all kinds, that's healthcare, retail, hotel, as well as office, was at 62%. Visitors are defined in this data as not only tourists and convention attendees, but shoppers, somebody coming to see a dentist, et cetera. That was back up to 77% on weekends and 90% on weekends. And we had more residents and have more residents than we had in 2019. We specifically highlight the purple area you see over on the left, which is essentially the core West Market JFK office district extending up to Logan Square. And we were back up to 57% of pre-pandemic volumes there, and above 50% for every month, basically, in 2023. What's most interesting is, while lots of people say we've hit some plateau, the data does not show that. The data shows a very slow, painfully slow from my point of view, but steady upward trend of office workers coming back. And I think we're going to see more of that coming in September. While the peak still remains Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you look at that yellow or orange line, you will see that the volume of people on every day of the week in 2023 is higher than in 2022. So again, that trend line is continuing upward. SEPTA is struggling to get a large number of people back. The parking garages are completely full, but you can see that SEPTA is only at 56% of its February ridership levels. And that's an area of concern, because we need that system to be really vibrant. Very quickly, to support recovery, we really kept every one of our staff on the street throughout 2021. That was 110 sidewalk cleaners. We added an additional graffiti removal team. and we carry out fee-for-service activities for nearly all of the adjacent residential neighborhoods. Those are largely 1 day a week. Our second core program, what we call community service representatives, uniformed, unarmed individuals equipped with two-way radios. They remained on street throughout 2021, 22, and into 2023. But particularly given all the concerns about public safety in 2021, we added an additional bike patrol, again, unarmed, but a patrol group equipped with two-way radios. And we're deploying 50 bike patrol officers now, 7 days a week with a 15-person day shift, a 10-person evening shift in entertainment areas. And we guarantee a kind of overlap. So we've got 25 people deployed at evening rush hour just to address those concerns around safety. So in effect, we doubled our public safety deployment as police resources have been constrained. But we've had this very unique partnership with not only Philadelphia police, but federal, state, SEPTA, all private security and office buildings, apartment buildings, hospitals, and universities getting together every other week to coordinate. Literally, we're coordinating our beats, our shifts to make sure that even people who are short resources have areas covered. The bottom line, despite a lot of the narrative, is that crime, serious crime, is down 6% below 2019 levels. It was lower last year as well. So this response has worked, with the most concerns about public safety really being around mentally ill and addicted people we see on the street. We have had a very long-term partnership with Project Home and the Philadelphia Police to deploy this kind of co-service delivery model in which we have our staff, Project Home staff, and crisis intervention trained police officers out systematically engaging people on the street 6 days a week. You can see last year we got 229 individuals to come off the street, no arrests, no citations. We dedicate a van to connect people to shelters of service. And we've seen an actual decrease, but again, the mentally ill and the addicted people on the street are the most visible and challenging problem that remains. On the animation side, we kept all 4 of our parks open. We gave all the performing arts organizations in 2020 the opportunity to perform outside. We kept all our fountains on. Our roller rink was open. Our winter ice skating rink was open and will be back this fall. And we've continued to promote all forms of retail and restaurants in the downtown. Right through the pandemic, we promoted takeout just to keep restaurants alive when they were struggling. And we will be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Restaurant Week starting September 10th. The other big promotion we do is for bars and restaurants, Center City Sips. That's ongoing right now, just highlighting bars, outdoor cafes. And a specific initiative we've had is around the office district, which is literally activations on office plazas and in lobbies. Starting in March, we partnered with the Building Owners and Managers Association to set up with SEPTA, our staff, and the police within office building lobbies to give out information about retail, assure people around public safety. In the spring, we did afternoon events on office plazas, lunchtime concerts, again, animation, welcoming people back. And in September and October, we have a whole series of events, which will include a pickleball courts on Dilworth Park. So how to make the downtown feel active and encourage people to come back. Very quickly, obviously, conventions and tourism were hit very hard. They were back up over 1 million last year, and that industry is really rebounding. By May, we don't have the June, July data yet, but they were almost approaching 70% occupancy, still short of the 2018 peak. Hotel tax revenue has fully rebounded, and the predictions are quite good for the almost complete rebound of the tourism industry. What we're missing is the large group and international travel still has not fully rebounded. On the retail front, we know that was hit really seriously across the city. New retailers are continuing to open. Just to put in perspective, pre-COVID, we had an 89% occupancy rate that fell to 54% Our June survey had us back up to 82% of retail occupied. We'll have our survey coming out in September, but we think we're at 86 or 87% right now. So that's almost a full rebound, with outdoor restaurants and seating still very, very strong in Center City, and restaurant and retail sales almost fully rebounded. I think the really big and good news is you can see the effect in 2020 on almost 120,000 jobs lost within the city. By February, we had regained all those jobs, and as of June, we had more jobs in the city than we had in February of 2020. So the recovery process has been quite robust. Let me spend a little bit and then wrap up on residents, in which residents downtown have really been leading the recovery. There was clearly this period in 2020 that was highly publicized, where people seemed to be leaving. College students going home, going back to live with their parents, people with second homes at the beach or the mountains leaving. So you saw we had a net loss of about 5,200 people in Center City that quickly rebounded in 2021 and 2022, so that we now see ourselves with 6,400 more people in 2022. And that's really continuing to drive the demand for housing. Just looking back, and I think we need to take credit as a city for this, in the mid-90s, we had almost 5 million square feet of B and C buildings that were vacant. Lots of cities are wrestling with this now. Philadelphia passed a 10-year tax abatement, as you all know, for the conversion of vacant and industrial buildings. We are one of the few cities that has that as of right citywide. We ought to really take credit for that, because most cities only have it in specific zones or with all sorts of approvals. And that gave us the ability between 1998 and 2022 to convert 40 major buildings, 9 million square feet of office space, to residential use, way ahead of what a lot of cities are just learning to do now. As you know, that was expanded to include a new construction abatement that has been subsequently curtailed, but that really drove construction across the entire city. But the second point that we don't fully appreciate is, in our office district, we have very flexible zoning that allows office or hotel or residential. Most cities are stuck in these silo codes where you must get special approval. Here's a second point where we were really ahead of the curve. So we call West Market and JFK an office district, but it has a significant number of hotels. There's a remarkable number of condos and apartment buildings. And that diversification of the downtown is the path to the future, I think, for almost all cities. And Philadelphia really excels here with this highly diversified downtown. So just in closing, just looking ahead and at housing in and around Center City, housing demand, not only in the core, but extended, and I'll talk about the adjacent neighborhoods. Last year, we had about 2,800 units completed. 85 to 90% were rental. That was about 48% of the citywide total. The numbers in construction this year are significantly higher. We've been tracking the neighborhoods immediately adjacent to what we call Greater Center City. There were 1,500, almost 1,600 units in that area. So if you take core, extended, and then these added neighborhoods, that's 16% of the land area, 75% of the housing units in the city. And bottom line is that what stands behind this production is population growth. Those who've been around for a while were accustomed to decades of population decline. If you look at Greater Center City, the population is up essentially by 54%, and 25%, for Greater Center City, whereas the balance of the city is only up by 2.7%. So strong population growth. For the last couple of years, row house prices in the core remained stable. It was the upper end condo units that took the biggest beating, given civil unrest and other challenges. We saw an appreciation in housing values in the extended neighborhoods by 16%. And obviously in the downtown, suddenly a huge surge in new apartment buildings, that are popping up. Obviously, the return of condos with the Art House, the Laurel on Rittenhouse Square. But I continue to be amazed in my morning bike rides going up the Delaware River, on up around Spring Garden, on up towards Kensington, the amount of new product that is under construction at this point. Now, there's been a couple of stories recently about current conditions and things going into the ground being substantially curtailed. Obviously, the huge surge we had was prompted by people knowing that that 10-year abatement for new construction was going to sunset. So people fast forwarded a lot of projects, and we're dealing, one, with a lull after that. But two, I don't have to tell all of you that interest rates rising has put a real damper on the market. To really look forward to 2024, I'm not going to try to predict interest rates, but that's clearly a huge variable. I think we have a new mayor, likely new mayor. Obviously, we have to have the election in November, but who is energized to lead, which will be really refreshing. I think she has evidenced a common sense approach to public safety and policing. She has been saying in lots of quarters that she wants city office workers to return. She brings with her a good relations with city council and the state. Question mark, will she be supportive of continuing wage and business income tax reduction? She voted for it when she was in council. I think that's really key to competitiveness. And as I think all of you know, she has a very close relationship with the building trade. So a lot of positives in what we can see coming forward. And the national economy is anyone's guess, and politics are even more mysterious at this moment. But let me stop there and just really open it to questions. I just wanted to provide a kind of quick overview of where I see us being.
Well, thank you for the presentations. Great presentation, and we will have some Q&A at the end of the session. But I'd like to just kind of get some additional background about you, and I'd like to go back to the genesis of the CCD and how did the Center City District begin?
So the district began, the context for those of you who've been around for a while, in the 80s, we had this remarkable office boom, Liberty One, Liberty Two, Mellon Bank Center, and there was a huge amount of enthusiasm about the growth of the downtown. And then 89, 90, the city went into recession. And so we had these extremes between strong real estate growth and then the city almost verging on bankruptcy. Ron Rubin, who was one of the major developers at the time, was the founding chair of the Center City District. He really did the initial legwork in the business community, got it approved in March of 1990. I got hired that year to help put it together, and we started in 91. It was simply around clean and safe. That's where we started from. That was where the essential issues. And we have really built from that, marketing, capital improvements. But at the core of what we do and what 17 other improvement districts do across the city is supplement clean and safe, which I think are the basics of good business and good residential markets.
Thank you for that information. And how does the CCD benefit Philadelphians across the city?
Sure. I think in a number of ways. One, Center City has 42% of all jobs in the city, highly concentrated. University City has another 11%. So one, by keeping Center City clean, safe, and competitive, it creates a location. 53% of all jobs downtown are held by Philadelphia residents at the center of the transit system. And so what we see really is a vibrant environment in which, whether you work in an office building, a hotel, retail, and healthcare, you live in neighborhoods across the city. And so keeping that really as a vibrant, growing place, I think, is the first contribution. Two is just the assessed value of Center City real estate represents about a third of the real estate of the entire city. That supports the school district. And then we've just committed over time. We've helped many neighborhoods, early stage, create their own improvement districts, whether it's Mount Airy, City Avenue, South Philadelphia. So there are many smaller scale examples. University City is probably the biggest next to us, Old City. But this is a approach of self-help within commercial areas that we've really been pleased to support across the city.
Thanks, Paul, for that. You know what, you pointed out University City, leading to my next question. Can you talk about the relationship between the Center City District and University City and how that symbiotic relationships help grow just the city of Philadelphia in general?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a map of jobs, you'll see 42% in Center City, 11% in University City. On one hand, those two areas are steadily growing together. What Brandywine has done, obviously, just north of the train station, lots of residential developers and others building west, closing that gap, first of all, to create a kind of uniform and unified business center. When John Fry was at Penn, before he left and then came back to Drexel, we worked with him to help create the University City District. They did us the favor and stole my director of finance, Paul Steinke, who became the first director. Paul now runs the Preservation Alliance, but we've had a collaborative relationship all along. Their strength is obviously eds and meds and life sciences. Ours is in professional and business services, hospitality. So they're complementary areas in many ways. And we're not stealing from each other in any way, so it works fairly well.
Paul, thank you for that. Paul, what I'd like to do now is like to open up to the audience for a few questions, then come back to you just to close out the
Sure.
presentation. Thank you.
Great.
Matt, can you go to the chat and go through a few questions for Paul?
Okay, so we have one question in the chat, and Paul, that would be, of all the things that the CCD has done, what one do you think has had the largest impact? And granted, that's spanning a lot of time and a lot of different endeavors that you guys have done. What would you say is at the top of your list?
Oh God, I mean, you're asking me to choose among my children, right? Look, I think one, despite the fact that it's base level, clean and safe has been essential. It was absolutely essential in recovery. I mean, we were out there the day after everything was a mess back in early June, and having that regular presence on the street, that reassuring of people, I think is key. But look, the creation of parks, the taking of a barren plaza on the west side of City Hall and turning it into Dilworth Park and seeing kids play in the fountains there through the summer, it's just enormously gratifying. But I think, being part of an effort where the city regained confidence in itself, and this is a city that very frequently is its most vocal critic, and kind of rebuilding the self-confidence of the city, I think is at the core of the success of what all of us do.
So Paul, on Walnut Street, where that structure had the fire, it was turned into a park. There was a nice opening of that earlier in the summertime. What the heck happened there?
I don't have all the details. I think that Avram, who was running the beer garden, probably was accustomed to doing stuff in parks. He may have missed a few city approvals. Maybe a few people in the city were more zealous than they should have been. He was shut down. My understanding is any day he's going to reopen. We've been in communication with them. Look, when you lose a building, 3 buildings, they burned down. It was a huge gap. What he did and what the owners did in creating a beer garden there was absolutely essential, and we're really eager to see it come back. He just has to work through, I think, a couple of bureaucratic problems he has, but I'm hoping by Labor Day we're going to see that reopen.
That would be fabulous for the fall, because it really looks like a great looking space when you walk past it, and it's just calling out for people to be hanging out,
Right, absolutely.
having a little beverage. So you talked a lot about the stats and perception. How does that change? How do we help change that perception of numbers on the decline, the bad numbers on the decline? How does that get better messaged?
Well, look, I mean, the number one concern that most cities are facing today are issues of public safety. And we've obviously been through a period of time where we have been forced, and very importantly, forced to rethink what public safety is about. making sure that it's equitable, that policing is delivered in a non-racist fashion. And that means rethinking police departments in many ways. But what I particularly like about the positions that Sherelle Parker has taken is she believes in community policing. She believes in quality of life policing. And we need to have police serving the communities they're in, being connected to the communities they're in. But we have to address this issue of public safety. We have statistically, but the perceptions are lagging behind. Again, those people who were around in 1990 knew how long it took us to kind of change the perception. But I'm really optimistic. I think to the extent we get good, solid leadership in City Hall, a restoration of momentum from city government, the private sector is more than eager, as well as the community groups, to see things move forward. So it's more perception now. I don't want to minimize. We've got a very significant, drug addiction problem in Kensington that not only is harming huge numbers of people in neighborhoods, it's spilling into other portions of the city. So you can't just solve the problems of Center City. But I am upbeat with a kind of renewed sense of leadership and momentum that we can get out of City Hall.
Paul, before let me ask you a question in that space. A rumor has it you may look to retire at the end of this year. And so in regards to public policing and with the new mayor coming in,
Sure.
are you working with the current police leadership, and that's the Philadelphia Police Department and the SEPTA Police Department, to maybe put something in place, post you being here, that kind of massages that relationship to give good quality information to the community for policing powers?
Yeah, let me just start. From the beginning, we have been co-located with the Philadelphia Police Substation. So these are Philadelphia police who are on foot and bicycle, who are working right alongside of our staff. So we have been interconnected and in partnership with the police. I've worked with all the police commissioners since Willie Williams, that goes back a way, and very closely with the city as well as council. So yes, we have a lot of shared experience on where policing should go, where policing is effective. We work closely with the current administration. We will work with an incoming administration. And it is true, I've announced that I'll be stepping down as CEO at the end of December. Many of you may know Prima Gupta, who has been with us for 3 years, had been at University City District at the Navy Yard. Prima will be taking over the CEO role on January 1. The board has asked me to stay on, 1, to chair the organization, but 2, I have a couple of projects. One just popped up in this morning's online inquiry, working on the next phase of the rail park. Very committed to seeing whatever happens on Market East really help finally bring that street to completion. So I'm handing off the day-to-day, but because I'm a workaholic, I'll continue to work on a set of other projects going forward.
And a follow up to that, and thank you for sharing that information. With the talk of the new Sixer Stadium coming into Center City,
right,
what are your thoughts, and how do you think that new arena best supports activity and vibrancy in the city of Philadelphia?
Sure. Well, let's just start with some numbers. The Eagles Stadium seats 70,000 people. The Phillies ballpark seats 43,000 people. A basketball arena will seat 18,500 people. We host conventions for 20 to 20,000, 5,000 people at the convention center regularly. So physically, that fits in the city. Now, that doesn't mean how well designed it is, how well operated it is. I think that Market East, those who have been around for a while know, 8th and Market has been sitting vacant since 1977 when Gimbels was demolished. 13th and Market has been sitting vacant since 1982. The Gallery, now Fashion District, is struggling at this point. We have one office building on the street. That's where Aramark is. And so the street needs more energy. And clearly, the commercial office sector is not in a growth mode, and its strength is west of Broad. Hospitality, residential are key drivers of the east side of town. Shopping is. And I see a sports arena well designed as one that can be a shot in the arm for the city and for Market East. Obviously, they need to address a lot of the legitimate issues that Chinatown has raised. And I believe that can be done through good design, through good management. But nothing this big is easy. You don't just plop it down. You need to do a lot of careful work. And we're in conversation with Chinatown. We're in conversation with the Sixers about how, if they do get approval, how it can be the stimulus for many more improvements on the street, for filling in the gaps, for connecting Independence Mall to the convention center, but more importantly, north-south. One of the things we've done badly on Market East is it's like a wall. You don't know what's behind it, behind the gallery. You don't realize that Chinatown's there. You don't realize like Wash West and some great neighborhoods are the south. So I'm much more interested in the north-south connections and how the arena can facilitate that. And then the last thing is that you saw my numbers for SEPTA, right? If SEPTA can't get ridership back, they're going to start cutting back. And while this is in the future, building an arena right on top of the regional rail lines, which can host, concerts and other things, can be a real stimulus to our public transit system too. But I'm not a kind of, blind supporter of this. It needs to be done well, but I think it can be done well.
Thanks for that information, Paul. Matt, we have a few more questions in the chat here. Let's have at it so we can get those questions answered by Paul. Thank you, Matt.
All right, Paul, can you talk about the Philadelphia High Line?
Sure. So the Reading Railroad line is, kind of runs, or it used to run all the way into what is today the Reading Terminal, which is now the convention center. It was broken when we built the convention center, but it currently runs from between 10th and 11th on Vine to between 8th and 9th on Fairmount. That's about 0.6 of a mile. We completed the first phase of that, the rail park, in 2018, that runs essentially from Broad and Noble Street, curving down to Callow Hill, a small kind of piece of it. We are at work now in trying to move forward with the creation of an elevated park. And Council has introduced a bill to accept the donation to purchase or acquire by other means that rail park, that viaduct from Reading. This is going to be a long process, but hopefully we'd like to see the city in ownership of that by January of next year. So if that goes well, we can move forward with raising funds for that. It is a great neighborhood amenity. I mean, let's be clear, those of you who know that area, 30% of the land surrounding it is vacant, right? I mean, there are great warehouses for Chinatown businesses. There are residents in that area. There are small businesses, but 30% of the land is vacant because that rail structure is a blighting influence. You wouldn't want to walk underneath any of those bridges. Who knows what will fall on your head? So I see it as a huge opportunity. It has to be done in a way that engages the community, and that process is underway. It's a significant project, but having raised $60 million to do Dilworth, I'm confident we can do this one as well.
Right, so let's talk a little bit about City Hall. You're just touching on that. Sprinkler bill legislation. Councilman Squilla has put in a bill that would require some retrofitting. What are your thoughts on that piece of legislation?
That's not my expertise. I'll turn back to you guys for that one.
Nice job there.
I can tell you how to sweep sidewalks, remove graffiti, and manage parks. Sprinklers beyond me.
Yes, something that we've been talking about quite a bit.
I'm sure.
Councilman and his staff. So you mentioned earlier about a lot of projects are being built right now, looking like rental properties. Any thoughts about, is it going to be hard to fill those new structures?
Yeah, so look, I clearly believe that the core of growth in Philadelphia is job growth and return to work. Do we get back to the 5-day a week? Maybe not, but we're moving steadily in that direction. We're more at a 3.5-day week. I think, you know, Comcast has announced they want people back 4 days a week. And lo and behold, Zoom is asking their employees to come into the office. What a miracle, right? Because they know that if you want collaboration, if you want innovation, if you want interaction, if you want to mentor young staff, you need to do that in person. So clearly these last 3 years have been hugely disruptive, but I absolutely believe, one, the more people engage face-to-face, the more productive our businesses will be. I will tell you that with office buildings partially filled, unionized janitor jobs are off by 1/3. All right. So when you lose the jobs on the professional business services side, you lose janitorial jobs, you lose transit jobs, you lose restaurant and retail jobs. So bringing back the office sector to me is a very big priority. Obviously, healthcare and education and life sciences are great drivers. To the extent we have that as number one. Two, we continue to need to lower the wage and business tax in the city. Those make us competitively in a bad position with regard to our own suburbs. Our amenities, our quality of life has carried us a long way. But if we can continue to have a more competitive tax policy, then we get something that we've actually enjoyed for 20 years, which is population growth downtown. And for the last 10 years, population growth in our neighborhoods. Again, if you've been around a while, and those of you on the call with hair the same color as mine, we grew up expecting this city to continue to be losing people. We've turned that around. We need to restart that. That's the driver of demand for apartments, et cetera. So fundamentally, job growth tied to population growth, I think, is the key. I think we're in a temporary period right now, which is that lots of people rushed. If you recall, the 10-year abatement for new construction was extended 1 year. And so tons of people fast-forwarded projects that really weren't going to go into the pipeline for a year or two, and they got them under construction to get the 10-year abatement. So yes, there is a bit of oversupply, but I don't think there's a dangerous or significantly serious oversupply. Some people will have to take certain cuts in rents, but I think it's temporary. It's painful now for those of you living through that. I don't want to minimize that. But so long as interest rates can come down nationally, so long as we have good political leadership in the city that takes public safety seriously, I think the prospects for the housing markets in the city are very good. I think people want to be in the city. I think we've got an affordability in the city which really exceeds what's available in most cities. So again, fix the basics, clean and safe, competitive taxes, and we're in good shape.
All right, one last question for you, Paul.
Sure.
In the job attraction sector, if you will, technology, is Philadelphia in a position to attract technology jobs? Or is that just kind of like a hope and a want?
Well, I mean, let me just say that the cities that are back the least, the cities with the most remote workers, have strengths in two industries, financial services and IT, because those are the two jobs that can be performed most remotely. So in some sense, I'm glad we didn't get everything we wished for in that regard. Now, Comcast is a wonderful exception. Brian Roberts has got his people back 3 days a week. He's going for 4. Where our big strength is in life sciences. And, you know, Penn and Drexel clearly deserve huge credit for that. Brandywine's been a driver. Others have been a driver. So building off our eds and med strength, which is historical, I think life sciences is a huge niche for us, obviously down at the Navy Yard as well. You know, I think information technology has kind of been blended into all of our jobs until we're all replaced by artificial intelligence. But that's a little way in the future at this point. So, you know, I think the mix of law firms and accounting firms and architectural and design firms, along with hospitality, healthcare, and education, is a healthy mix which kind of insulates us against some of the extremes. Sure, I'd love more information technology jobs. But I've been finding myself in the last 3 years going back to Aesop's fable and the tortoise and the hare. We are the tortoise. We're a slow-moving city, and there's a lot of exhausted hares lying by the side of the road as we go walking slowly by right now.
All right, great responses. Thank you, Paul. That's it for the questions from the chat.
Great. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming on. And before we let you go, I'd like to, we're coming up on the hour, but I'd like to have a little bit of fun and ask you a few lightning questions here.
Oh, sure.
I call this the
Do
lightning.
I have to tell the truth in all of these or not? With it?
You can make it up as you go, Paul.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
So the first question is, what's the last book that you've read that you could recommend to the audience here?
Oh God, I actually just finished reading a book called Season of the Witch, which is about San Francisco 1960 through the AIDS crisis. I read it because I was on a ULI panel out there. And it's an amazing story of a city that went through earthquakes and mass murders and killing of, and they kept rebounding. And to me, it was kind of inspirational. You know, all of us had our, we got kicked in the gut by the last 3 years, and a lot of people got to be pessimistic. And I kind of read that book and said, if New York can rebound from 9/11, hey, if we could rebound from what we did in MOVE days, we just need to have that same can-do spirit coming out of now. So it was really inspirational to me, and a city that kept finding a way to bounce back. Of course, it helped to have the 49ers too as their football team. I learned in there too. That helped them.
Thanks. Paul, what does your morning routine look like?
My morning routine is my dog wakes me up every morning at 6 o'clock, and then coffee, and then I'm sitting here at my laptop. Then I go out for a long bike ride along the Delaware, and then I drag myself into the office about 9:15, 9:30.
Okay, good. And my final lightning round question. What is your favorite holiday movie, and what does that say about you?
Oh, my favorite holiday movie. Oh my God. I'm married to a film critic, so I'm going to get myself in real trouble here. I can't answer holiday movie. I have a passion. Let me just say, we watched The Big Short again last night, but I'm also a sucker for, what's the Mel Gibson movie, the Scottish 13th century? I'm completely forgetting. Somebody help me out here with the name.
Can you help him out here, Matt?
What's that?
Braveheart.
Braveheart, right. So
Braveheart,
I'm
go.
a sucker for movies like that too. What can I tell you? I've got bad taste in movies.
Good. Thanks. Paul. Okay. Paul, I'm giving you before we close out, I'm giving you a magic wand. What would you do to improve the city of Philadelphia and imagine it a new city if you had a magic wand, Paul?
Oh God, a magic wand. I know you asked me this one in advance. Look, I think I really would like to see a new mayor take office and build the kind of broad consensus between the extremes that exist. Nationally, it's just toxic at this moment. But I think Philadelphia has the ability, our extremes are not so far apart here, that someone who can come from neighborhoods, as Sherelle does, can kind of build a business community alliance, a safety and equity alliance. We've got to overcome these kind of insane divisive, the politics of our country today are toxic. And that's my biggest wish for Philadelphia, that we become a sensible place that finds the middle.
Paul, in conclusion, I want to thank you, GPAR Association and membership. We want to thank you for joining us today and for giving us your thoughts and insight about our great city. Thank you for being such a valuable contributor to the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors over the last few years, and for being a tremendous contributor to the Philadelphia community during your impressive 33 years here at CCD. We wish you the best of luck in your future. And I'm sure it's going to be in good hands with Perma Gupta at the helm in your retirement. And so thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm gonna hand this over to Matt for a conclusion on housekeeping items. Matt, take it away.